a screen X amount of size. And listeners, we're going to jump around a bit here because my notes are all over the place. Well, they picked up a story, then they dropped it, and they moved on to the next story. Then they picked up a story.
Yeah.
So I just put things in some kind of logical order in my head. So, and not necessarily the one that they wrote the story in. All of this leads me to believe something we did talk about in the last episode as well is becoming more apparent to me, that Picard leaving was an awful idea.
It is definitely seeming so. Yes.
Yeah. That it wasn't just he couldn't do anything, so he decided to leave and not be a part of it. Like, I think the message they're trying to send, and people might be very upset by this, is the fact that by not staying and doing something, he's actually somewhat culpable for it.
Well, and the line where they said, well, that's what you do best is go home.
Man, I wanted to punch her in the throat.
That was harsh, but then that goes to, he resigned. He left. He didn't stick it out.
Right. Because he took his ball and went home. I mean, because they were doing what he didn't like, he decided, I'm going to walk away. And we had said in the last episode, well, is that really the right? And I kind of threw it out there just as a debate point, not really because I thought it was the wrong decision. However, I now believe it was an awful, awful decision. I now believe, because you have the question, and this comes up whenever we go back to any horrible instance in history, right? The people who sat around and did nothing about it, they didn't help and they didn't hinder. Are they also liable for what happened? And I've always stood and said yes. By inaction, you created an action. You allowed it to happen when you could have stopped it. Now, Picard may not have been able to stop this, but by leaving, you allowed it to happen. And I hate saying that about Picard.
Man, listeners, don't get a guilt trip because I am having a major guilt trip. That is a very, very difficult and real life situation that we as society members have to deal with. What are we allowing our government to do? And even just in my personal career, what am I allowing education to do? Like, it's massive. And there's so many times where it's like, I just want to close my teaching door and let me teach my kids. I can't deal with everything else and the major flaws in our educational system. I know they're out there. I deal with them on a daily basis, but do I really? Because I choose to not take as much action as I should. Oh man, Pat, you're putting on the guilt. So, it's real.
But let me make you feel a little bit better, okay? Like, I can do that too. I can make you feel terrible and better. So here's the difference between you and Picard. He was an admiral. You don't run Nevada state school systems. You're a teacher. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you're not in a position to make vast sweeping changes at a whim. You could fight for them. You can do things that help go that direction, but you need, as in your position, you would need a lot of support to accomplish this goal. And eventually you need to get to the person who ran your district, who then gets to the person who runs your county, who then gets to the person who runs your state. He was in a position where he could make changes much easier than you or I could in our careers.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. He definitely was a big dog there.
Right. I mean, he's an admiral. And even when he comes back, he's like, well, if my rank is a problem, you can just make me captain. Like, how did he not see that answer coming that he got? Like, How did he not see that coming?
And I love that line. It's like, this isn't your house anymore. And then that lends to exactly what you're saying. How much impact that Picard had and influence and power that he had, and he walked away from it.
And then, much like I would do, he went on TV and shoved his foot in his mouth right before asking for a favor.
Right.
Yeah,
that definitely came back multiple times in with the doctor and the admiral.
And that's me. And that's me to a T, by the way. Yeah. I'd be out there screaming exactly like he did. They were wrong. Starfleet didn't exist anymore. Blah, blah, blah. I need a ship.
Yeah. And a small compliment crew,
Just a few people. Please.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, so I'm understanding a little bit more your position, but did you believe the Admiral's justification on why Starfleet acted the way that they did? I mean, there were 14 other members of the Federation that were going to pull out, that needed to have the unity, that they didn't want the Federation helping. They didn't want Starfleet helping the Romulans, because they were, enemies forever, which is a stupid reason. But, so it's like we as viewers got this behind the scene dilemma that the Federation / Starfleet had to make. And then they made this call. Like, I can see, especially, again, I hate bringing teaching always into it, but that's my world. So as a teacher, I have more information than what my students see. And so if my students, well, that's not fair. Too bad. I have more information and I'm going to make the right call because I know A, B, and C, and you only know A, right?
You could tie this into my job as well. As a foreman, which I'm not right now, but as a foreman, if I tell you I need the pipe 6 inches off the wall and you don't like that, you might say to me, well, why? And typically I will tell you, because there's a duct going right here. It's not here yet, but it's coming. And if you put it 8 inches off, you're going to have to move it 2 inches back that way. Some guys aren't going to tell you. They're just going to tell you, I want it 6 inches, put it in now. Heck with him. I'm going to put it 8. Well, now you screwed up. And like you said, it's because I have blueprints that show me what's coming next. Now, to answer your first question, do I buy her excuse? I buy she believes it. I think it's nonsense. I believe that that's what really happened. Not that it's a lie, that it didn't happen that way. I believe it's a nonsense excuse, though. I believe that, well, first off, now all of a sudden the Federation can just dictate to Starfleet what they can and can't do. Like, the Federation, we've always talked about this. What is the Federation? I've always come to the conclusion it's the UN. All right, well, England doesn't get to tell the United States what they can and can't do. We might take their opinion. But the way she was talking about it was like, well, we had no choice because they were going to get wiped out. They were going to get wiped out before the synth attack, because you said they started before the synth attacked. So that bothered me. Not episode-wise. Her answer bothers me for Starfleet.
Yeah, because the star, was dying. And so they were helping the Romulans, and those 14 members, I think, were trying to be bullies and saying, don't you help them, they are our enemies, and sort of feeding into this fear of the Romulans. And it's like, these are lives, as Picard said last episode. It's like, we have a duty to help lives, period. And then these 14 members sort of bullied and strong-armed Starfleet. And you're right. I think we do need to make a distinction between Starfleet versus the Federation.
Right. The Federation can say it's not helping, but its members can still decide to help.
Right.
When the UN helps, it sends a UN security force, which is made up of members, people that are from the countries that's in the UN. However, they don't get to tell the United States Army to go somewhere or, whatever, whoever, there's, I forget the number of countries in the UN, but
150, yeah.
Oh, maybe that's it. Yeah. Something. It's in the 100 somewhere. Yep. There's 200 and something countries in the world, but so they don't get to dictate to those countries what they will do in this particular action. They can ask for help, and they often do, and they can do other things. But I guess that's what the Federation was doing. They were telling them not to help. They were playing the politics game. But I always felt that Starfleet was just above those kind of politics. And honestly, I'm probably wrong. They probably were never above it. But because that's why the Vulcans always drove me crazy, because we would look at it, go watch Enterprise and how much the Vulcans destroyed us there. And even watch into TOS and TNG, they've always looked down on us. They were always way better than we were. There were some Vulcans who treated us as equals and colleagues, but for the most part, they kind of treated their society as better than ours always.
Well, as I was actually replaying what I said in our conversation about Picard being the big dog, he probably would have known about the 14 members wanting to leave. I mean, he was an admiral. That was his house. Like, he would have known. So I think I withdraw that. And so, yeah, I think he would have known. And still he agreed that Starfleet pulling back was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. I still believe that he believes that it's the wrong thing to do. And he's right. He's right. He's 100% right.
Yes.
He goes wrong when he leaves.
Right.
Now, we don't see everything. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he tried for 5 years to change their minds and he got pushed out. If they tell me that later, then he's not liable anymore, right? But the story as we have it now, his leaving opens the door for a lot of stuff that's about to happen in this series. And jumping to the end, we find out that Romulans are walking around the Federation space, right? They're on Earth. They are sending death squads, and they're doing it with the Commodore's help. Does that Commodore become the Commodore and do all this if Picard stays around and doesn't allow this to get so far out of hand? I doubt it. Maybe.
Yeah. So, okay, answer me this. Why that Commodore was Romulan? So why is there a Commodore when Romulans are our enemies and we can't save them, but yet they are so high up in Starfleet?
So I questioned that myself because is she? The other girl's Romulan. She's not the Commodore. The lieutenant is. But she pretends not to be and she has round ears. So isn't this just the other one's... The Commodore is not Romulan. It's the other one who's Romulan.
She had ears.
That should be Vulcan.
Well, I assumed her to be Romulan.
Yeah, except that the other one had to get rid of her pointy ears, so they didn't even think she was Romulan.
Right.
I don't think she's Romulan. That doesn't make sense. Especially since the lieutenant has to pretend to not be Romulan. Even though we now know she's the sister to the guy who's now with the twin.
Okay, so crazy thought. What if it's that agent that's with Soji, because said little brother.
Right.
But then what was his name? We got to learn these names, Pat.
I'm terrible with names, so that's probably not going to happen.
Lazarus or something. Anyways, the guy who's sleeping with Soji, and
right,
he tells
Soji, the hot Romulan.
Yeah, whatever. I don't think he's hot.
It was just a way to get her to have to.
Yeah.
So that maybe people will start to figure it out.
He tells Soji that he lost a brother. Do you think that because the female human undercover Romulan is the brother? I
don't. I don't know. I think... That's a good thing. That never crossed my mind. I think we're going to find out that somehow working with the Borg killed the brother. I think that's what we're going to find out. But who knows? So I like that. Oh, we're all over the place.
I know.
So I did like the fact that we're reclaiming the Borg technology. They defined why it's a reclamation center now.
Right.
We're not guessing. It's not a new home for them. This is simply a mine. They're mining Borg technology. But who are they selling it to?
And why are they doing it?
Well, if your society got destroyed, you still need to find a way to make money. You come across a collapsed Borg ship and you can sell it.
Why are
non-Romulans doing it?
Well, Soji, I'm going to say humans in air quote.
Well, but so is her friend's human.
And all those people, why are they knowingly helping the Romulans gather these Borg implants?
I have a theory. I don't think it'll pan out, but I have a theory. They're Romulan sympathizers. They don't agree with what Starfleet did either.
And so they're trying to help the Romulans. Okay.
The Borg are dead anyway, according to the Borg, right? These particular Borgs are no longer part of the collective anyway.
Right. Not dead. So, because they're removed... Man,
correct.
That scene with the heartbeat going when they were taking off the eye and then all that jelly gross stuff and the heart rate increased. Oh my gosh, that was powerful. And then when Soji comes up and puts her hand on his arm. Oh.
Yeah, and tells him, you're free now, friend.
Yeah.
And his heart rate slows down.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, to the Borg, they're dead, right? So
yes. Yeah, that's what they said.
Right.
And then it was interesting that there's